Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are doing the post-mortem on the Future Technology event, the recent Build-A-Bear event that hasn't finished yet, but the crafting part of it has. So at least from my point of view, it is done. In this video we're going to go over the issues, the positives, the negatives, all of those wonderful things, and I've split them into different sections, and also there will be timestamps in the description if you want to go to those specific sections. Anyway, let's get into the video. So the positives are few, since this event, in my opinion, was one of the worst of the last few years, but also not non-existent. They carry over from the other crafting events that we've had in the past. The first one being the fact that all you have to do is play the game. All you have to do is play rank 3 or higher in the majority of game modes in the game. Whether you enjoy aviation, ground, or naval, you are able to get yourself these prizes, or at least some of them. And you could also do it alongside other things such as dailies and special tasks to be able to continue with doing your battle pass and also other areas of the game. They also made it so you could get crates in the April Fool's events that were going on, the Tailspin and also the future Minotaur tank stuff, which was going on as well, the Warfare 2077. So overall, at least that was good. At least it was slightly better than before with the Space Race event from last year, where in the Space Race event, you could get the camouflages and the actual parts themselves were not exactly easy to do, or the crates themselves were not exactly as forthcoming as stuff such as the camouflages from the specific April Fool's event. The other one as well is these events are great for free-to-play players. If you are not interested in any of the vehicles, you can sell everything on the Gadget store, and I understand this only comes to PC players, but it's better than nothing. And the free-to-play players can sell all their stuff on the market, get a ton of Gadget coin, and then be able to buy premium for a year with it, or wait for the sales and pick up some other packs with it. And I think personally that is really good. That is something which should be seen as a big positive, and a way that people who don't want to invest money in the game or don't have the ability to be able to invest money in the game, they're able to buy stuff which is normally away from them. It's the big positive of the gadget market and always will be. Unfortunately, that's really the only positives for this event. Now, the vehicles themselves, you had an interesting mix of 4 vehicles. You had the SU-76D, which is a terrible machine because it has so many unfortunate factors to it, but it is actually a really good event vehicle since it is a unique prototype, and I feel like if it came to the game in the tech tree, what would actually happen is a lot of people would overlook it and it wouldn't even get its time in the sun. At least as this event vehicle, it gets access to premium, so therefore maybe people will give it a go. As somebody who played the Su-57B a lot, especially when it was a higher BR, these box machines for the Soviets with weak armor, no gun depression, and very weak engines are not very fun to play at all. But at least in this way, at least this prototype can actually see some play. The next one is the F4F Phantom, the German vehicle that was on offer. In my opinion, this was a very bad choice for an event vehicle. It is technically the best plane in the German tech tree as of now, and it will be completely replaced by that in a future update, probably the next one, by a better Phantom. The first point is that this is lazy. The Phantoms, we already have a ton of them in game for different nations. This Phantom does not offer anything new. If anything, it just takes away stuff from the other Phantoms, such as it doesn't have the bombing computer or the rocket computer, doesn't have access to flares or chaff, doesn't have access to a unique radar. It is just a Phantom which is very similar to all the other ones with a few bits lopped off. And because of that, it doesn't offer anything unique speak to the majority of the players. The only reason to go for this thing is if you feel like you need something for your top tier German lineup, but as you already know, there is going to be a future Phantom coming to that lineup anyway, so why would you bother with this one? Unless, you wanted to sell it on the market, or unless you wanted that power straight away. And as we know with all event vehicles of this type, such as the M68BT, the high-tier Macavers, even some other machines that have been added recently, such as the F11 or the Tiger, the win rates of the nations for about a week become very, very bad, and it becomes very, very annoying to play as a first player experience, because either one or two things happen. If the vehicle is very good, then people will go on its side with similar vehicles to annihilate the enemy teams, or just use that vehicle to annihilate enemy teams. Or on the other side, if the vehicle struggles, which this one will do since it's a top ranking vehicle which is stock, and people will clown on it in their other nation's stuff. So you'll see a lot of stuff like MiG-21 Bisses or F4E Phantoms or F4EJ Phantoms to try and fight this thing to annihilate it out of the sky, because it will be very easy prey until it gets some of its high ranking modifications. This is why I'm generally against stuff such as high-ranking event vehicles, because even though it gives players a taste of what top tier is like, it gives them a very negative taste, either one way or another, and that is never good. The next one is the UDIR, or the up-top American destroyer in the Japanese tech tree. I think this is a completely fine vehicle to have as a premium for an event like this. I think it's completely good. It would have been nice to see a Japanese domestic vehicle around the place. That would have been great to see. But then again, if that means that more domestic Japanese destroyers from the Second World War get put into the tech tree, then I have no issue with it. It's just, it's another rank 2 destroyer, which will be great for grinding out rank 1, 2, and 3, so people can experience some of the really fun Japanese destroyers. Japan has some great destroyers, and I would highly recommend giving them a go, especially in arcade. And then you have the XM8 AGS. This to me is a fine event vehicle, even though it's a high BR one, and I've already talked about, my issues with that before. And the main reason why I think it's fine as an event vehicle is because you have a bunch of options to put in the tech trees of America, and add other variants of it. So you could easily add is it the Class 2, I believe, or the Class B armor pack, and then just stick it in the tech tree. You could add the 120mm version in the tech tree if you wanted, or you could add a whole host of other light tanks that America have developed over the last 60 years into the tech tree around its BR, and I think it would be completely fine. It generally is kind of sad that it is another high-tier event vehicle for America in ground. After the 3 Macavers and the M68BT, it seems like this year we're going to continue with the trend of high-tier American ground event vehicles. And the fact that 3 of the 4 of these vehicles are in major nations, obviously the USSR, Germany, and America, is very sad. It would have been nice to see other nations represented. I thought the way that they did the winter event was really cool, where you had the lower tier event vehicles, or the premiums, being for minor nations, and the higher tier ones being for major nations. I wish they continued with that trend, so it means that even though, the majority of the player base play those higher tier stuff in those major nations, therefore they get access to them, at the same time, it meant that you got premiums for other tech trees, so maybe you'd give them a go, and I thought that was a really nice thing. But unfortunately this time that didn't really happen. When it comes to the crafting side of things, the general theme of the event was interesting, being able to create a future vehicle design even with the general components that you were given, which were very similar to modern day stuff. I thought it would be nice if they explored more ideas of crazy materials to build and use, instead of more, simple ones which we see from today. Maybe just come up with some crazy stuff as you go along. The problem problem with it, though, with this theme of the event, it has nothing to do with the vehicles themselves which are on offer. When you have a look at the Space Race event, it didn't make a lot of sense realistically that you were building a rocket to go to the moon to bring back a piece of the Object 279, but at least it actually had the Object 279 in it. At least the theme was consistent with the thing that you were creating. What was the point in building a Minotaur? Why were you building it? Why would you trade a Minotaur for an Su-76D? Why would you trade it for a Phantom? Why would you trade this 2077 tech for one of the other vehicles? What is the point? How does that work? You see how the themes don't match up at all? And that, to me, is quite a big thing when it comes to these events. The theme itself has to be consistent. That's why in the Strategist event, the Battlefield Engineer event, the Space Race event, I thought the themes were really cool, and they actually added a lot to what you were building, where in this one, it made absolutely no sense, and therefore, it was very sad. The other thing as well is, why did they add an extra step in the form of schemes to the building? Why did they add this balance, this detailed, and this light set for schemes? There was no need for this to confuse people and go ahead and create extra steps in the building process in something that people already sometimes struggle with when it comes to being able to build all these vehicles. The first few days of any event is always a lot of confusion from individuals until somebody has actually created the first vehicle, and then everybody knows where to go from there. And now it's even worse when it comes to the schematics and how all of that stuff works, because technically you have 3 build paths now. And the problem with doing something like that is you have no idea what build path to go down, because you have no idea how much each of the things costs. And also, at the same time, it means that you can get screwed unless you open up all of your boxes first, all 400 of them, then you know which schemes to go for, because the opening of the boxes is based on RNG, and since you don't know what your RNG outcome is going to be until you actually open everything, then you can't plan ahead to be able to put everything into the actual rows and columns which design the Minotaur. So overall, you just end up being in this point where you don't have the recipes, you don't know what your RNG is, you've added extra steps which also involve more RNG. It does give you a little bit more of a choice between what you want to pick, but what's the point in the picks when you don't know what your outcomes are going to be when it comes to the boxes? And it just increases confusion, it just increases the RNG of the event, and it means somebody could go down one of the lines of schematics and just completely screw themselves because they don't get the drops that they require in order to build the rest. This is just another mechanic that is built into this thing, designed to confuse and also designed to increase the RNG nature of this event, and I really don't like it. I hope this doesn't make an appearance in the next one that they do of this, because my god, was it annoying to talk to people about and try and understand. And the other thing as well is, because of the limit on the boxes and also ammunition itself, it means you only could get half the rewards from the event if you just grinded. And obviously, as we've talked about many times in the past, this is a huge negative when it comes to these events. They are the only events in War Thunder where you can only get half of the prizes that are on offer, and it is obviously money motivated when it comes to these. It is obviously not designed from a point of view of the player interest in the first place. Otherwise, they would stick to their words from a few years ago, saying that these events were made for the most dedicated of players and how they were made so if you did grind, you would be able to get everything. It is literally impossible to be able to do this in this event. And it is incredibly infuriating from my point of view because of that. And that's why I will always bash on these events until something like that is changed and they can make everything achievable by the average player or by the most dedicated player just by grinding. And unfortunately right now, that is not the case. There also needs to be some kind of button to be able to open all, an open all button for crates, because at least for me, and since the way that they set up the schematics, it is much better to actually open up your crates like all at once instead of doing them individually. It's also better for time as well. They should just have an open all button so you can see everything straight away instead of having to click, 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 click. One of the problems that Enlisted has is there is a lot of clicking involved in that game, and in War Thunder, in the areas such as, this event, there is also a ton because of the UI design. Just put in an open all button, so therefore, you can open all the crates at once. Timing is not something that we normally bring up when it comes to these events, normally because the events are generally pretty well planned out, but this time it was incredibly egregious how everything was set up. So let's just have a look at the last 2 weeks since this crafting event has been going on, and let's see what's been going on. So you had, obviously, the Battle Pass going alongside it, which is generally okay. You had the 2 other April Fool's events going alongside it, which once again wasn't too bad. Then you also have the Cosmonauts event, which was last weekend. That, once again, not too bad, but still added on top of everything. Then you had Enlisted OBT on the 8th, which was a really big problem. And then also you had a Twitch drop event, which obviously affected me personally, so therefore I'm going to have a chat about it this weekend. So technically, this event was the first one that I haven't completed in War Thunder's history in around about 5 years of playing the game. And the reason for this is because of the fact that they decided to put out Enlisted OBT on the 8th and do Twitch drops on the weekend, and I prioritized being able to get, people their Twitch drops over finishing the event, especially since I knew I wasn't able to get everything out of the event. This, to me, is very annoying, especially since maybe they could have pushed Enlisted OBT back a week, or maybe they could have pushed this event back a week, because there is a ton of cross-pollination when it comes to Enlisted and when it comes to War Thunder and the general player base. A lot of people who are interested in Enlisted have also interested in War Thunder. There is a big World War II element when it comes to War Thunder, and that could have easily transferred over to Enlisted. There's also a great crossover between War Thunder players and stuff like Post-mortem and also Hell Let Loose players, and therefore they would have been interested in Enlisted as well. But the problem is, because of the timing of the whole things, if you are dedicated to doing the event in War Thunder and you're already halfway through it, you aren't going to drop it all to be able to play Enlisted OBT, therefore giving it a bad launch compared to what it could have been, which would have been a lot more players playing it and enjoying it. And the thing is, I still think Enlisted had a great, release. I think OBT, there was a lot of people playing it, a lot of people talking about it, and still a lot of people talking about it to this day, which has been really good. But at the same time as well, the planning is ridiculous. You cannot stack things on top of each other. And I know, people are going to talk about, well, they're different developers, different development studios in a way. You've got Darkflow Software, and then you've got the in-house Gaijin guys doing War Thunder. But the people who are controlling the publisher or the people on top of both programs are exactly the same. The CEO is Anton Yudintsev. Then, of course, you have people under them. But the branches of this company are under the same umbrella. They should not be stacking events on top of each other, making it impossible to be able to do them, especially when the genres are very close to each other. And this just means that hopefully in the future we don't get something like this, because it's happened quite a lot in the past when it comes to Enlisted. Enlisted, whenever it had alpha tests or whenever it had CBT weekends or anything like that, there was always something going on in War Thunder, whether it be something like a dev server or another event. And I don't want to see Enlisted enlisted shot in the foot for War Thunder. What I would like is for it to get a fair shake. There are plenty of times, in War Thunder where stuff isn't going on, and enlisted should be given that courtesy. I understand the idea of having two independent player bases that do not interact, but right now, from where I'm looking, that doesn't exist. Right now, cross-pollination, especially when it comes to CCs, and especially when it comes to the community, is happening, and therefore should at least be thought about when planning these events. Otherwise, it's just going to get more and more annoying with the fact that we won't be able to complete the ball, and that is a problem when it comes to both games. Anyway, those are the general feelings when it comes to this event. I would have to say I was very disappointed in this event overall. I hope the next Build-A-Bear event does improve in 3 major areas, so make it so everything is achievable to grind out, plan better and don't run different events simultaneously at the same time, focus on one event, and also reduce the RNG of drops and remove the different design schemes to make it more understandable for people would be the 3 things that I focus on, or that I would like changed. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank BRFC, Swollen Ostrich, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe, Conte Baraka, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Lafouche, Barine, and Samuel Schlick for supporting the channel.